Derek, yeah, Guerschon Yabusele had a chance to finally hear from him and some of the takeaways from what he had to say for you.
Yeah, and he mostly a lot of the questions were like, so what's sort of changed? Where have you grown since being last in the NBA? And a lot of it was just like, look, I think mentally, obviously, he mentioned his shot, and that is something that we're going to focus on a lot, especially in camp, especially early on in the preseason and the regular season. And I always hate making too much out of small sample size shooting, but you can't avoid it when you're talking about a player making that transition from EuroLeague to the NBA. But he also talked about growing, as in terms of his mindset and mentality and approach to the game, learning how to add value when he's off ball, learning how to be in the right spots, how to cut, how to, crash the offensive glass. I think that transition from, into being more of a role player and a really high level role player in a good league in the ACB, I think that's done him well. And obviously, a lot of that won't really matter if that shot doesn't translate. We've talked about that a lot throughout the season. It is an adjustment, not only in the quality competition, but in the longer 3-point line. But if that shot translates, I think him coming here at, what is he, late 20s, 27, 28, yes. 29. I actually forget his exact age at this moment. But 5 years basically after he was in the NBA the last time, I think he's way more prepared. And he spoke a lot about that throughout the course of his media session today.
Yeah, and I think you can – obviously we didn't deal with him when he was in Boston on a day-to-day basis. We're watching him from afar. But I think listening to him and hearing his perspective about – he's 28, by the way. I just pulled up his wiki just to double check.
That's why I said 27, 28, 29. Give myself a wide range. I can't be wrong.
It's all kind of the same at that point, right? Just like once you hit 30, it's like you're just in your 30s. Nobody cares about your age at that point. Kind of the same about your late 20s.
Ouch.
But I think you can hear the maturity, right? Like what he's learned about not just as a basketball player, but about his approach to life, right? Like you come from overseas, you join this team in Boston, you're fighting for a role. There are times when he probably is not in the best shape. He's learning the best professional habits that you need to have in order to make it. And I think looking at how his body has changed since that time is a reflection of that. I think certainly when you saw him play in the Olympics and when you go over the tape from Real Madrid, you can see a guy who has, adapted to being a role player, right? Like all these guys, any guy who makes the NBA, I shouldn't say any guy, the vast majority of players who make the NBA, when they were growing up, they were the man, they're the main person on their team, and they didn't have to think about, okay, how do I fit in next to these high volume guys? How do I play with high usage players where I'm going to be the fourth guy or the fifth guy in a lineup, and I might not get a touch for several minutes at a time. In fact, I might not get a touch at all. I might be setting screens. I might be rebounding. I might be doing the little things exclusively in the short bursts that I get. And I think he has shown a good understanding of, how he was going to make it back here. He said today, he didn't necessarily think that this opportunity would come for him, that, going to the NBA for a second time is not guaranteed, but he was certainly hoping for it, working toward it to some extent. And so I think he's one of many guys that are coming into this season with something to prove, right? And I know that the hype train has kind of left the station with him, so it's going to be hard to contain anyone's expectations. And I'm not trying to. I hope everyone is super excited to see this guy and everybody else play. But even if he only has a bit part on this team, if he's not good enough to be that, the starter level player that people want, or even just a top 8 type player on a regular basis, I think he is in the right mindset to at least have some moments this year, right? And if he's not a 16-game player and he is just a 82-game, hey, we might see him in, 30-something games this year, and he makes an impact in like 10 of those. That in itself would be worth the contract that he got. We're obviously going to hope for a lot more, and we think he brings a different element to this team that they don't have. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing him on the floor. I just the crime of this training camp is that we're not getting to see more, right? We're hearing all these good things. We see the glimpses, and you talk to assistants and different people around the team who are like, hey, this guy impressed, or hey, Tyrese is leading. And hey, look, Yabusele, the star of the Olympics, he's ready to roll. And we still got to wait until early next week to probably really get our first taste of Sixers basketball for this season.
That is sort of something that is the undersaid part of all of this. It is, and look, we're out in the Bahamas talking to NBA people all day. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. You would like to see a little more of actual basketball being played. Like we don't, we hear people talk about basketball being played and their impressions, and we get to ask questions like Kyle did with Maxey on how he's trying to make that next step. But you don't get to see a whole lot of it in person. It's pretty much been shooting drills both of the days that we have been here so far. I'm not sure if I expect that to change. So I am really looking forward to some of these preseason games, which, gosh, I never thought I'd really say, but with the season that is this consequential and this much change, and there's so much chance for this to be a special season, you want that first glimpse of basketball. And it's great that they have, 6 of them this year, which seems like a lot, including 3 and 4 nights, which seems ridiculous, but it doesn't matter because a lot of people won't be playing in a lot of them anyway. But it is, I don't know if I've been as excited for a preseason in quite a long time. And if I'm saying that, I'm sure most of the people watching this show and or listening to it are saying that as well.
We all silly like the mayor.